All right. Good morning. Welcome to our final session of the school year. My name is Mike Steffen. I'm a Palen Music Center representative in the Kansas City area. I'm a former band director. Don't shoot me, orchestra people. Saxophone player, even worse, right? But I am here to help guide and facilitate what's going to be a wonderful discussion this morning. We have people that have signed on from all over to learn from three veteran educators that are going to share lots of great ideas. There's going to be time for you to share ideas as well, to submit. I have left the chat open this time. Usually I close the chat down and I have it just to me, but I've left the chat completely wide open. So if you need to send questions to the group, if you need to throw in your favorite pieces along the way when we get to that section, please feel free to be interactive. We want to make this as helpful as possible for everybody. Everybody who is pre-registered for this session, you will get the notes and the recording from this session when it's done. I'll do that later on today. If you did not register for that, please just send me a quick email and say, hey, I want the notes. No big deal. I'm not offended if you didn't register. It's just a helpful way to organize who gets the notes later, okay? I'll type my email into the chat box for those of you who don't know it, and then we will get started. So I'd like to introduce our three wonderful clinicians this morning, and a lot of you on the call already know these people, I'm sure, but I want to make sure that everybody on the call knows who we're looking at. So we have Allison Ross. Allison teaches in the Independent School District. She's at Truman High School. And she's going to be addressing all kinds of ideas that she has. She's got a wonderful organizational system for you to check out. Very, very cool idea. Sheri Cain is over on the Kansas side, and she is in the Blue Valley School District. She recently moved from the North Kansas City School District, and she also works with the Youth Symphony of Kansas City and has a lot of wonderful ideas for middle school kids. And Joel Martin is in the Olathe School District. Excuse me. And Joel has got some wonderful set of ideas and how he chooses his lit. And we're going to be I was going to say orchestrating. We're going to be setting this up, organizing this session into kind of three subcategories. The first one is how these teachers select music. So hopefully you can steal an idea too, or share your ideas. Second, then we'll do some question and answer after that. Second one is finding new music, question and answer after that. And the third thing is, what are the favorites? And then a little question and answer after that, and we'll wrap it up. We'll probably be about an hour long or so, maybe a little bit over. If you have to go for a Zoom call with kids at 10 or whatever, feel free to hop off. And again, we'll send recording and notes later. All right. So without any further ado, let's do how we select music. Joel is going to get us started.
Good morning, everyone. First of all, this format makes it seem like the three of us are like the experts and we're going to tell you our information, and that's not at all the way we want to think about this. We're going to share kind of what we do and what we think about, and we would love to hear your ideas as well, because we're all experts here. We all do this. We all have great ideas that we'd like to hear from everyone about. So selecting music, for me, it's actually a great setup in Olathe, because we have a festival at the beginning of the year that all the high schools do together. So we've just set up a 4-year rotation of the music that each of our groups learn. So we don't have to pick the music at the beginning of the year. For me, my freshmen don't participate in that. So my freshmen actually don't play on the first concert of the year, which is great. I call it boot camp. I get freshmen from all over the district, and they come at all different performance abilities. And so we just work on skills that first quarter. But for the rest of my groups, we don't have to, I don't have to, try and pick literature. It's already pre-selected. And then we bring in clinicians to work with them the day of the festival. For the remainder of the year, I do a lot of sight reading. First of all, I think it's a very important skill. And second of all, it just gives me an idea of what students are going to be able to play throughout the year. I keep pulling pieces that I think might work for them depending on the skill set that I want them to learn. And good variety. If we have a themed concert, things that fit with the theme. But we just do a lot of sight reading throughout the year. And then when the time comes, I put together what I think is a good set of music for that particular group, for that particular concert.
All right. Thanks, Joel. That's kind of a simple, concise answer. I like that. We're looking at Allison next to share about how she selects her music.
Like, way to go, Joel. I'm a talker, so I'm sorry to all of you. So I have sort of two different aspects that I come at it from. And one thing that I like that Joel stated, and I think that I didn't know as a beginning teacher, is really thinking more about the skill set. And Melissa Guillory talked to me a lot about in the beginning, just not teaching to the test. So we're not just there to put on a great concert, like we're actually teaching skills. And so skills should be the core of why we choose music and what we're doing. So yes, we want a nice concert. We want parents to understand that it's an enjoyable experience so that they keep supporting their kids, but really it's about skills. So when I'm selecting music, I guess I would beg everyone to consider everyone's part. And I think that that's my biggest thing. And I think as a cello player, I always am like, great, open G again. So just really consider not just the melody, but what's happening in every other part. So that's a big part of what I do when I consider music. And I also really try to remember that whatever I hear is not exactly what it's like to play. So a lot of times I'll listen to music, I'm like, that's great. I get the piece, we start playing it, and it's really not great. So, what you're hearing is not always what it translates to playing. So I try to think about that when I'm selecting music. And then a thing I like that we do in our district is we work really, really hard together. And so listening with my colleagues, we get in a group and we listen to some music together, and then we talk about why we like it or why we don't like it, so that we just don't get stuck in only doing, what fits our personality, but maybe what works with everyone else. I'm going to share my screen really quick just to show you an organizational thing that we use. So, oh, wait, you disabled that. Just kidding. Can I share my screen, Mike?
Yep, give me 10 seconds. Sorry.
Okay.
Keep talking.
Sorry.
That's my fault. Keep talking.
Okay, so I have an organizational system that we kind of use together. And I shared this document, and we plan all of our concerts together, partially because in our district, our student population is fairly transient. And so a lot of times they may start in one school and go to another. So at our middle school level, we tend to program similar pieces, but we all program together. And so we color code everything. You can see all of our schools laid out and our concerts, and we'll plan the whole year at a time so that we really focus on those skills. So we do that, and that's important. And then we do keep tabs for what we played last year. What did we play the year before? And that helps, but then we also have these other tabs at the end, and hopefully you can see those, which help us. And the possibilities tab is one we're always running. So when we're picking music, I'm picking music all year long, all the time. Anytime somebody says something, I write it down so that I can go back and look at it. And we're not super organized. I actually added the titles this morning, so it doesn't look organized. But anytime we hear somebody say this is a great piece, we write it down. And then we go back and check if we have it or not. I can't tell you why things are highlighted. I don't know what we were doing last year. But then once we decide we want it, we go to this sheet and we just put it in. So this is what we ordered, whatever, like last year. And this is the piece I wanted to order, how much it cost, the number. And then I end up just like copying and pasting this into an email, and that gets it ordered for me. In my school district. So I just keep track of everything in this one document, which helps me over a long-term time select my music.
Wow.
So I just wanted to share that if anyone's excited about that.
Absolutely.
I shared that document.
Allison, are you up for sharing that with everybody so that they can make a copy of that and steal those ideas? Or is
that's what I forwarded you in that email.
Oh, that's why you put it in the email. Perfect. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
so they have to make a copy and don't ruin my.
Yes, right. So that will come out with the email that I send with notes and stuff. Okay. If anybody's taking really good notes today and wants to send them on, feel free. Some of you have taken notes for me in the past. I don't want to put that on anybody specifically, but if you'd like to share some details, please feel free to. Sheri, you're up next on how you select music.
Hi guys. I focus, my focus is middle school, and then in our district we start elementary and fourth grade. So by fifth grade we have second year players, and so that's been my learning curve, is how to choose orchestra repertoire for fifth graders. But I would say, like, beginning of the year, I want to do review from what they've done in the previous year, because I'd say the first 6 to 8 weeks is just review of what we did last year. And so I like to have a concert in October to give them the motivation. And so usually those pieces are very similar to the grade level they were playing in the spring of the previous year. They usually are fun. It's usually a Halloween themed concert. And so that way they kind of forget they're not learning new skills or reviewing. it's always about hiding the broccoli in the sauce, right? And then if I'm doing like in my previous school district in North Kansas City, we did a middle school festival in February, and that was a really tough time because we had snow days and we had PD days and we had Martin Luther King Day and President's Day. We had all these days off, and then bam, at the end of February, we had to perform at our highest level. I'd always knock those kids down another grade level and say my 8th graders would do grade 2 or 2.5, so I knew their comfort level would be strong at those performances where we were being adjudicated. That doesn't mean I didn't go through there and look for opportunities to do third position, or I would switch out harmonics for open strings, or I would take those opportunities to again, hide the broccoli in the sauce and teach new concepts even within those pieces that aren't technically as hard. But then after that festival, we go big, and we, you know, because the whole year we're doing technique books, right? We, in the district I'm in now, we do essential. And then, so whatever technique we're working on, it's usually a level or two above what we're working on in class as far as class music is, so that by the time we get to 3rd and 4th quarter, I'm really challenging them with some harder stuff, especially for 8th grade. I'm looking at what they're going to need to know for high school. And that's comfort with shifting, understanding of vibrato. I didn't say they have to do vibrato. They have to understand what it is and be working towards it. And then be able to produce good tone and play with a certain level of confidence. Those are my goals. So when I'm looking at pieces, I follow what Allison said and make sure violins don't have the melody the whole time. That just grates on my nerves. As a violinist, we are known for being divas, and I hate it. And so I work really hard not to be one of those people. So that's it in a nutshell.
Okay, perfect. So that is our first session, or first piece of part of this session, all about how selecting music. So we talked about how Joel says he has something that they rotate every 4-year cycle, and Allison shared her organizational tool, and Sheri talked about hiding that broccoli in the sauce. That was a hilarious quote. I love that one. Please somebody write that down. So what questions or comments or additions would anybody like to make? Feel free to just unmute and kind of pop on here.
I have one for Allison.
Okay.
And her, so this is something that I've been challenging myself to do, is to kind of plot everything out. Because I think a lot of what I've done in the past is I enjoy sight reading with the kids to let me know where they are as an ensemble. But I feel like for me, I need a little bit more structure. And so what I'm asking you in the organization of that chart, is that something that is set in stone, or do you like manipulate it as, you know, as the year goes on and you see, oh, that second concert, they're not going to be able to do what I chose for that third concert, and do you adjust, or is it, well, we're just going to move on and do what I set and forget it?
Yeah, absolutely. So it is a working document all the time. So obviously I have in my mind, I don't know about anybody else, but sort of like I get the teacher glow over the summer, and I'm going to be like, it's going to be amazing. I'm going to teach all these skills and they're going to get it the first time. And, you know, like, I mean, you know, so I get that. And then I have to go back into real world. And so, yeah, we have to adjust it all the time. There's usually like a key piece or something, like a skill that I, you know, really wanted to get to, or something that I think is really important. And a lot of times I'll keep like one piece, but oh yeah, no, it changes constantly. But for me, I always need to see the long-term goal, or like the long-term set. I need that in my mind. So heck yes, make a plan and then change it every day.
Great. Wonderful question. Anybody else want to add something? Diane, go ahead.
Sheri, you talked about how you spend the first 6 to 8 weeks doing review. What will that look like for you this coming school year? And will you spend more time in the review phase, or will you, like, what are you thinking?
Great question.
You know what, Diane? What am I thinking? I'm not sure.
I don't know that anybody is.
Right. Well, so, and my plan is, you know, I was talking to Allison. We were expected in our district to maintain weekly lessons. So, but I will tell you, I taught nothing new for the fourth quarter. So I stayed on what we ended with in third quarter, and we just reviewed the same scales, the same techniques, and they had to turn in video submissions to me for that. All that said, my plan for next year, fingers crossed we're in school, right? If it's safe, fingers crossed we're in school. Yes, it'll be at least 6 to 8 weeks of review. And it'll be starting where we were maybe even at the end of second quarter, and then moving forward through there, especially my babies, my fourth and fifth graders. Fourth graders, we may need to start at the beginning of the book, because I'm expecting those bow holds and those left hands to be a hot mess. And but it's, you know, like I said, when I'm doing the review, I'm very careful about making it as much fun as I possibly can, because I find that's where I lose kids. If I'm reviewing with too much stringency, then the kids are bored. But if I can make a game out of it, again, that's where that broccoli and the sauce thing comes from. If I can make it fun, they forget that they're learning stuff and they're reviewing and doing the boring stuff. So my goal is to, if we're online, I don't have an answer for that yet. I'm going to try to do small groups of 3 or 4, because we're, as a district, not allowed to meet with our kids on Zoom one-on-one. So I see me doing Zooms with 3 or 4 kids of the same instrument, and then maybe even hiring out the bass stuff and the cello stuff, because my gosh, what a nightmare that's going to be for, right?
Totally. Diane, I think that was on everybody's mind when Sheri was talking about reviewing. So thanks for asking that question. Anybody else have anything you'd like to talk about? Tanya?
Hi. So I'm going to be a first year. This is going to be my first year teaching. I'm going to be starting in the fall, hopefully, you know. So I had a question about everybody is talking about like assessing your students where they're at, or like figuring out what skills they have prior to selecting literature. Did you guys have any like or do you guys have a way that you assess what skills or what you know your students have or don't have? Because I have an idea, but I just want to hear your thoughts.
I have a thought really quick. I would look at as many programs as you can from the prior stuff. And I think that's going to give you a basic idea of what the teacher prior to you thought they had. Whether you agree or not is a whole different topic. But I think that, and talking to your colleagues as much as possible, if you have any. Like, I teach all of my feeders. Like, I am my own feeder. So like I talked with Melissa Guillory, who teaches in the same school district before I got there. But talk to as many people and look at as many programs. And then, like Joel said, sight read for the first time. It's my opinion.
Sheri,
I also, my freshmen, since my freshmen come from all over the place, the beginning of the year, I give them 2 short excerpts, contrasting one, with shifting and with vibrato and things like that. And I have each of them come in and play it for me. I tell them it's not for a grade. It's just for me to see where everybody's at. And you may just need to do that, depending on how big the program is. But that's what I do with my freshmen every year, is I hear them all individually, so I can kind of see where this group is at, where individual students are at, and when I'm going to need to teach.
That's a good comparison, Joel, because everybody on the call has freshmen that they need to worry about, or incoming kids from the other programs. That's perfect. Sheri, do you have anything else to add to that question?
Well, I don't know where you got the honor of serving next year, but our district all does the same technique book. And so if you're doing high school, I think Joel gave you an excellent idea there. And I think Allison's idea of sight reading is excellent. My other thing that I would do is I take that technique book, and again, I start back several pages from where they should have been at the end of the previous year, from my opinion. And then I see if that's too hard, then we go back a few more pages as a group. And then I'll do what Joel does, and I do weekly playing tests, and they're not worth very much points at the beginning because they're getting to know me, I'm getting to know them. And it usually takes 2 or 3 weeks for me to assess, because I want to see every kid where they are and meet them where they are and make it in a way that's not judgmental too. And so.
Great. Well, we don't want to rush off of this topic, because I think of the 3 topics that we're talking about: selecting music, finding music, and then your favorites. I think this is by far the most important one for our curriculum, obviously. So we don't want to rush away from this topic. Is there something else that you would like to ask or contribute? Anybody wave your hand, or?
Can I ask something? It might be a little off topic, but Joel, I know you have a freshman orchestra, and all your freshmen are in a class. They don't audition for orchestras that are ability levels, right? All your freshmen are in one class, correct?
I put all my freshmen in my freshman orchestra classes. They're not, freshmen are not able to audition up to my upper groups, no.
So differentiating the instruction, does it work? It obviously works for you, but how do you select repertoire that's gonna reach everybody of all ability levels?
Sometimes we'll give the upper students, extra challenges, places, but tell them that we need to play this in a higher position, whatever that happens to be. And also we encourage those students, the students who are a little bit more advanced, to create quartets, quintets, and ensembles so that they can be working on that while the other students are practicing, to keep up with what they need to do for class. Those students can be practicing additional music.
That sounds like differentiated instruction, Joel. Good buzzword. Michelle, does that help with what your question is?
Yes. I just thought, I didn't know if you had any other ideas.
That's perfect. That's perfect. All right. What other comments or questions do we have, guys?
Just one follow-up from before for myself. So do you I am going to be teaching middle school, and I'm going to be teaching, and in the district that I teach in, my beginners start in 6th grade. So for me, one of the things that I'm worried about is like a concept map. Like I was thinking, like we talk about like, hiding the broccoli, or what was the quote? Hide the broccoli in the sauce. Yeah. And I want to approach it kind of like, did you guys have like a list of games that you guys use, or like activities? Because like for me, I definitely want my kids, they say like go a little bit harder at the beginning, but also since I'm new, like try to build relationships and stuff. And I don't know how to balance all of that with the teaching and the good stuff. So help.
Can I take that one? Because as my personal bend is relationships first, music second. Because if you can get those kids to be a community, I almost said family, but family's not always a positive term for all of our kids, depending on what they're coming from their homes. So we want them to be a community first, and then you can make really great music with that community. And so I'd say work on your rapport first. Games are an excellent way. I find a sense of humor is one of the best tools in my tool belt, because if you can get everybody to laugh at the same thing, you've just created a bond. And so, but that is also my strategy. I know a lot of teachers who don't use a lot of humor in their class, and they're excellent educators, and they create that bond through giving them wonderful musical experiences, and the kids bond over the creation that they've done together. But again, it's that community first, music second.
I think absolutely you have to be you, whatever it is, whatever is your personality. But I actually, can I call on people?
Yeah.
Laura is Vanderwoudy is a third year. Are you going into third or second? Third. You're going into the third though. But she's a brand new teacher, and she only teaches 6th grade. So you have any good ideas, Laura?
What you just said about being you, because I actually student taught under Allison first, and we're pretty different personalities. So I learned a lot from her, but in my first year, like finding that balance is just difficult. So I really liked what Sheri was saying about like different games and kind of disguising teaching techniques. I'm still learning that. I'm still adding things to what I do. But yeah, everything they're saying is true, that you have to like make sure that you have a good relationship, and a good relationship with each kid. Because like as I'm teaching 1st year 6th graders and wanting them to continue into 7th grade with a new teacher, for me, making sure that I have those relationships and can build that with each kid, even if it's just small little things. I don't know. I don't have any great ideas.
That's perfect.
At the moment.
Would you guys think that we can kind of distill this down to the notion that they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care? And it's such a statement I think that all of us have been told sometime in our teaching career. I know that it impacted me very quickly when I heard that statement early on, that I needed to stop worrying so much about the curriculum at first and start connecting my kids. So that's, maybe you can distill it down to that and put that above your desk or something.
And I mean, yeah, and I think as a beginning teacher, that can be as simple as, I make sure you have an instrument. I care that you got your instrument and that you're ready for class. I care that you're prepared. I care that you like know how to put on your freaking shoulder rest. I swear, if you don't check every single one of those things, and not everybody has a frowny face. Somebody has theirs flipped over and it's smiling. No, violins frown. Okay, but making sure every kid has it done, then that shows that you care about them.
That's fantastic.
So,
I have a question, and to jump in on, add on to that a little bit. Yeah. I think that with all the I can talk this morning. current uncertainty. Tanya, you're walking in as an unknown teacher after these kids have gone through, a quarter of online learning and, even more than everyone else. You need to get to know them and let them get to know you, because they have the transition of teachers plus the transition back and forth from online to in-person to who knows what the rest of the year is going to look like. Get to know them first, build the relationship, and that way, when we do go back to remote, you'll already have that built and be able to build skills, as opposed to trying to hurry and catch up on the relationship with, oops, we're out of school again. And I think, Hanya, I think you're going to do awesome.
Awesome. Congratulations, Panya, on those great questions, and welcome to the profession.
For relationships,
And
I always made sure that I was at the door, no matter how hard it was for me. I always had something I needed to be doing, but I always made sure when kids were coming into the room, I spoke to every one of them as they came in, and I tried to do it on the way out. That's a little harder, but I too, Sheri, think it's important that we build relationships, and I wanted all my kids to know that I cared about them and would ask a question or how are you doing or whatever with kids. And I thought that was really important.
indeed. Thanks, Anne, for that sage advice. Okay, let's move on to topic number 2. So our topic number 2 is finding new music. What are the resources that these 3 use and that everybody on this call uses to find new music? So we were going to start first with Allison on this one, and then Sheri, then Joel.
Okay, so I actually do not have a lot of intelligent things to say on this part. So as you can see on that document I shared before, anytime anyone says, oh, my kids love this piece, I write it down. Like, I would rather hear from a person than a catalog or whatever. That being said, I actually write some of the reviews of music for the ASTA Journal. So I don't know that I should be talking about not listening to those people, but like, I just listen to what everyone else has to say, and I try and branch out and not put myself in a box. I have 3 pieces that I'm gonna suggest to everybody that are totally out there, and you would probably never pick them on your own, but just because we had to branch out and do something. So I just mostly listen to other people, and so I sent out Val's thing that she shared at MMEA this year. She did a whole list of all the music that was performed while she's been adjudicating over the last couple years. And then out of those, she selected a bunch that she really particularly liked. And I get phone calls from friends all the time. Oh, did you hear this piece Val picked? It's amazing. So I listen to her and like Joe Keeney, and actually through Joe Keeney, I've heard a lot of Joel's suggestions. I don't know why me and Joel don't call each other, but we're going to be besties from now on. Okay, so I say branch out and listen to others. And then the only other advice that I give about new music is I tend to always stay away from pop music. Some people are really into it, but I'm not. I'm into musicals because they tend to stay around, but not new musicals. I only do like old musicals. Like Les Mis is, I think, one of the newest musicals I have. Mm-hmm. And then I think one of the newest pieces that I've bought for my library is Thriller. So I felt like Thriller is going to be around for a while. So I tend to stay away from that when I'm finding new music. So yeah, listen to everyone else. Don't buy pop music.
Looking for that music that really is going to stand this test of time. It's not going to be a flash in the pan.
Because in my district, we don't have money. I don't have money to waste on stuff that's not going to be around. So
you don't want Theme from Ice Castles to be.
So yes, we have a colleague who said, oh, I found a great new piece. It's called Theme from Ice Castles. Copyright date, I think it's 1983.
Anybody like 35 and over gets that joke. Anybody younger doesn't quite understand.
Well, we love it. We love it.
Okay, let's see. So we had Allison first on that one. Sheri, you're up next on how do you find music?
Well, I am an orchestra nerd, as I think all of us are, and I listen to a lot of other groups, either if I'm adjudicating or just being a peeping Tom on what other people are doing or whatever. And I like to just go and watch kids of the age I'm teaching to see what they're playing, how much joy the kids are having while they're playing it. I mean, middle school, there's very little joy when they play. We talk about that all the time. You're supposed to have fun while you're playing. And then I also, when I'm going through, I go through JW Pepper and Lux like all the time. Those are my two resources that I use. And then again, I don't do pop music. I detest it. I can't stand it. I will purchase it every once in a while. Last year I did Hand Clap, and my 7th graders still have the entire thing memorized, and they whip that out anytime I step off the podium, and it just makes my skin crawl. But they love it, right? And we use it for pep assemblies and whatever. Yeah, orchestras at pep assemblies. There's another topic.
Nice.
Then, but yeah, my 3 selections that I like are all, I have 2 for full orchestra, and then I have 3 for string orchestra. And classical music for middle school is really hard to pick because the arrangements are usually terrible. They're usually so watered down that you lose the essence of the piece. So I usually, like Joel, I don't know if he said this before you guys got on or after, but he said he's got favorite composers. I would say me too. Brian Balmages is one of my favorites. Elliot Del Borgo is one of my favorites. I like Sandra Day, and the few pieces that I have that are classical for middle school, I've got a Sleeping Beauty waltz from Tchaikovsky, arranged by Dabsinski, and that is an excellent rendition of that piece. And then Paige Mitchum a couple years ago introduced me to Echoes of Bartok by Bartok, obviously, and arranged by Walter Cummings, an excellent classical for middle school. And then my 2 pieces for full orchestra that I do in the middle school level, Slavonic Legend by, again, Del Borgo. Can't go wrong with that. It's got a lot of doubling between the winds and the strings. So if you have thin winds or thin strings, you've got someone to make up. And then we just did Cumberland Cross, which is a fiddling tune. And to hear flutes fiddle was one of the highlights of my season last year. So that's it.
Awesome. And did you kind of jump into your favorites category? Is that what you were doing?
I did. I'm sorry. So now I don't have to go.
You're done. We'll see you later. Bye.
Yeah, bye.
Hey, Sheri.
Totally fine. I just want to make sure I understood what you were saying there.
Hi, Barbara.
Hi, Sheri. Who was the Bartok arranged by?
That is Walter Cummings.
And Sheri and Allison and Joel, for your favorites that you're going to be talking about or you've already mentioned, please either drop that in the chat, or we'll make sure that goes out in the notes so that you guys don't have to be furiously writing the whole time. Okay, please continue furiously writing, but don't worry about it if you miss something. All right, Joel, how do you find new music? What's your path?
I spend a lot of time trying to find new music. I think it's important. I don't like to do a lot of repeating of pieces, mainly for me. So I spend a lot of time, trying to find new music. This is actually one of the best ways to do it, is just getting together with other educators. Basically, anytime we're at, a mini convention or I'm with other orchestra directors, I'm asking, what are you playing right now? And I just keep a list on my phone, and I look it up later. If it's something that I think looks like something my kids would like to play, I buy it. I use a pretty healthy portion of my budget just for buying new music. And again, so we can sight read through it. We don't perform everything that I buy. And one of the things I think is important to recognize, and in the high school level in particular, is you can have pieces that your kids work on that you don't perform. I do that all the time, especially with my upper groups. There's maybe a particular skill, or maybe it's just a piece they really like. A couple years ago, my chamber orchestra was enamored with Tchaikovsky's Souvenir de Florence, the last movement of that. And it was way too hard for them to perform at any level where it would sound, at a concert level. But they loved working on it, and it had some really great skills for them to work on. So we spent a lot of time in class, because their other music that they were performing was coming along great. So yeah, talking with other orchestra directors, listening to a lot of other orchestras. If you, especially again at the high school level, if you got the opportunity to pop in at state contest and listen to the other groups, or they always send out a list at some point in time of what everyone's played at KMEA, checking out what are the other groups playing. Even if you can't make it, grab a program, find it out. As many performances as you can get to of other groups, especially festivals and things like that. I do YouTube searches, string orchestra. Again, both JW Pepper and Lux Music, you can filter your searches by string orchestra, and I'll do things like, composers that I really like. I've found some great pieces by Tchaikovsky and Sibelius, and that are written for string orchestra that are wonderful, wonderful pieces of music. Let's see what else. That's a lot of it is just taking time to search, have the TV on in the background and have the computer in front of you, and be patient, find stuff that you like, do a lot of searching. But it's funny that Allison mentioned Joe Keeney, because just 5 minutes ago, he emailed me a list of pieces that he recommends to share with everyone. So I'll add that to the notes as well, Joe's list. He does the same thing. He spends maybe even more time than I do trying to find new music. So
he sent that same thing to me, so I'll include that in the notes.
Okay.
You don't have to worry about including it in your stuff to me, so that way it'll just be one less thing you have to send me. Thanks to Joe in advance, and his is music ideas for grades 4.5 to 6. So it'll be some upper level stuff for you to check out. So kind of distilling back all of our ideas, thinking back through everything that was just mentioned. We talk to other people, we involve the colleagues that are in our area, and we reach out to people, we listen. And we probably can't stress enough that for the younger teachers on here, especially, the choosing your performance music and choosing your curriculum. I mean, this is your curriculum. It's the most important thing you can do all year. So if you're just finding the fastest thing to just choose, and which I know I was guilty of as a young band director anyway, that I would just find something fun, and then somebody kind of hit me over the head and said, this is the most important thing you do. You better spend more time doing it. So, and
one thing I forgot, there's also Facebook groups that you can go on and ask, and veteran teachers say, I'm looking for a piece, a grade 3 piece that, features strong viola. And there's a number of veteran teachers that'll jump on and give you all kinds of great suggestions.
I was also going to add, when I'm selecting music, I try really hard not to look at the numbers, like, oh, it's grade 2.5. Well, there's some 2.5 that's really hard, and then there's some 4 that's really easy. I'm like, why is this labeled that? So I try not to look at that. And then I also try to never compare myself to other groups. So, my groups and Joel Martin's group, why did I say your last name? I apologize. Joel's groups are totally different, and we have a different setup, we have a different school system, we have a different whatever. So I can't compare to that. I can't compare to Sheri's groups with my younger kids. We have totally different situations and totally different support, money, all sorts of things. So, when Joe calls me asking about for middle school literature, it's what some of my high school are playing, and so I just don't, you can't get offended by it. It's just a different group. So that's something else I try to really remember when I'm picking out music. That's
just for your kid, not comparing.
And to jump on that, what Allison said, all the publishers have a different kind of guidelines to use to grade level pieces. Carl Fisher's one that's grading is totally different than everybody else's. So you do have to watch that. They're grade 3s, mostly, or grade 4s in other publishers. So, it's watching that stuff with them. And reading sessions, I think, are important. I saw a few people putting it in chats, but it gives you a chance to play through some music, talk to your colleagues at the same time. And I've done one for the last 10 years with Midwest sheet music. And I've always tried to make a handout for them so that there's music in particular categories, things that highlight different instruments, that sort of thing. And then the last thing is JW Pepper really has done a great job online with their stuff. You can get on, see scores, listen to the music. It's very time consuming, but boy, is it a help. You can see the score, see exactly what you need, where we didn't have that before. So it's really nice.
Absolutely. So, Susanna, I know you mentioned that there's normally that JW Pepper reading session for orchestras and for bands in the fall. I've just reached out to Ron Allen from Pepper to see if he knows anything about that yet. So if I hear back from him, then I'll certainly pass that information on to you guys. Let's see. Hey, Val, are you up for sharing the list of material that you put together for your MMEA session? Is that something that you can send to me that I can pass on?
I sent it to you this morning, Mike. I had already asked Val for permission.
Oh, look at you. I love it.
No way.
I know, Val, you like to keep things to yourself. You don't really like
Right.
sharing, and you don't like
Yeah.
helping others. But you
She's
know,
a horrible mentor.
maybe
Horrible.
I want to jump in and say everything that Val has ever told me to play, I've played, and my kid, it just really, it's been such a joy to have her as a mentor. So stop.
That's pretty awesome.
I'm muting.
Thank you, Michelle.
All right. So anybody else wants to comment on how they find new music or any questions? I think we covered lots and lots of options there.
I don't really have any comments, but I do have a question for the good of the whole. As we are in the state of unknown, and next fall is something that we need to prepare for, I am wondering how some of you guys are anticipating, one, finding music, and how are you going to structure yourself as an ensemble-based discipline in a distant learning world? And maybe some comments on how you guys are doing that now, if you are, and how that is going to affect what orchestra looks like, if it's a continuing distant learning thing, or if you have any ideas on.
So, yeah, I'm gonna segue from that. I think that the next topic was going to be favorite pieces, but I think that can all be kind of sent out, right? I think that can be typed into the chat box. I think that can be sent out via email. But I think that this topic you're bringing up is really what's on everybody's mind more than anything else, is just how in the world are our ensemble directors going to make this work, choir, band, and orchestra. I'll jump in with something first, and then I want to hear lots of ideas, because what I'm hearing on our side of things, from the music business side of things, as we're talking to administrators and as we're talking to teachers across our network, Missouri, Kansas, Oklahoma, and Arkansas, a lot of ideas are having to do with spreading out and rotating. Whether that is, you find as many large spaces as you can. You find you're going to have ensembles that are split into 3 and 4 groupings in different rooms. And you're going to have a lot of student leadership leading rehearsals. And so that's where, getting to know your kids and having them on your side is really going to help quite a bit. And then possibly the possibility of rotation between days. Some kids come on certain days, some kids come on other days. So that's kind of what is being talked about in the administrative circles right now that we're hearing about. So just wanted to throw that out there. What topic or what thoughts have you guys come up with so far? What brainstorms have you had? Anybody
I've
jump
had
in?
some friends across the world and country, and most people, I think, are truly waiting to make decisions. And I think that's puts us all in a hard spot. But and I think that we should all be sort of like percolating some of these ideas. But I do think one of the most poignant phone calls I had was, what was it like 2 months ago? And if anybody remembers 2 months ago, that was like our first day off, I think. I mean, it's the 20th, and I remember the 13th is when everything went south. It was Friday the 13th. I happened to be in New York, so I remember it very well. And that's when everything went bad, was 2 months ago. So, and we have 2 months till school starts. And so we've come so far in these 2 months. And so I think that, we're talking about the same things. Our school district has just started doing that. They're already talking about face-to-face summer school and based on parents' concerns and things like that. So I think it's too soon, in my opinion, already to just jump in and say, let's figure out online. I think some people have done some really great Band-Aids for sectionals online and things like that. But I don't know. Maybe I'm in the wrong here, but I think I want to wait another month before we totally give up on our ensembles as they are, or in some version like the rotating or whatever.
I don't think there's any in the wrong, Allison. We're all navigating this, and your ideas are wonderful. Just take a breath for a minute too, and everybody enjoy the month of June without having to think about this, right? And did you have something you were going to add?
No.
Okay, you were unmuted, and I just didn't know if there was something you were going to say.
Sorry.
That's okay.
As I maybe to piggyback, maybe just to get another idea about, there is so many unknowns right now, but for me, I'm wondering if most of you guys have done your distant learning currently as more of a teacher, one student type of experience, or has it been sectionals? Has it been Zoom meetings? How are you building that community? Like you said, Sheri, within a distant learning concept. I mean, I don't think that we all have the answers right now, but maybe just a few sprinkles of goodness would help.
I think one of the things that I did was I kept my Zoom meetings going through the quarter. Like, I think a lot of us did that. And there was no education for me in those Zoom meetings. They were just a way for the students to meet together and be in the same collective space again. And when I would get those Zoom meetings started, it really very seldomly was led by me. The kids just jumped in and started talking to each other, because like I said, that community to me is the most important thing. And
But that was just community, not necessarily
right.
playing.
Because because Zoom is horrible and it changes pitch and you can't do anything at the same time. And so, like, I've been talking to Monty Carter a lot about this, and he's actually created some duets to do over Zoom, because each person just plays by themselves, and it's kind of a back and forth kind of thing. And so, you know, maybe that's what I spend my summer doing, is thinking about how to do ensembles through Zoom. I'm hoping it doesn't come to that. I'm really hoping, like Allison said, we've come so far in 2 months. There's a lot we can learn in 2 months. And plus, you know, let's be honest, we're kind of at the, we kind of have to do what our governors tell us to do. You know, like Laura Kelly shut us down real fast, and Mike Parsons took a lot longer. But I mean, what if we make all these plans and then the governors decide for us? So.
Right. Ron Allen did get back with me from JW Pepper, and he says, "Hi, Mike. I really don't know. I know several sessions are going virtual, but there are some publishers concerned with having new pieces ready with offices and print shops closed down. So not only are we having to worry about if the actual reading sessions will take place, but will the music be ready to send out?" So that's something else they're having to consider. I hadn't thought about it from that angle. Yeah, what else? So Jamie Kleiner, you had something that you were going to say?
Well, and this kind of ties everything together. I think that this has the potential to really change. I mean, it's going to change everything, but I think we can really force it to be a positive change. As I've gone through my almost 10 years in the classroom at this point, and seen the movement in core classes to flipped classrooms, I think that kind of this has the potential to be our flipped classroom. How much instruction has to be face-to-face? It's convenient to do it face-to-face, but can we do videos for our kids that say, hey, here's this technique that they can record and send back to us, and we can give feedback? Yeah, it's easier if we can be like, hey, no, move this finger here, move that finger there, but does it have to be that way? And I know for me, I'm expecting we'll go remote at some point, whether we start remote or not. But I want to maximize our ensemble time, whether that's small ensembles, big ensembles, in the classroom, and really put as much of the individual stuff as we can, you know, where it can be individual, and use the technology to maximize what we can all do. And, you know, kind of wrapping up the broccoli with the sauce and keeping the kids engaged and building relationships. I put a lot of this music selection stuff on my kids. I'll come up with a short list. We'll play it. We'll listen to it. I'll give them copies of scores. I'll ask them questions about it. And I tie it back in with our standards. You know, what would this, you know, put a program together out of these 10 pieces, pick 3. Why do you pick those? Hey, here's this pop piece. Look at that rhythm that you love the pop piece, like hands clap, hand clap. Whoever had their middle schoolers, my kids do that all the time. They'll grab onto a piece and they just play it, and it ends up being their senior request when they're getting ready to leave. And I'm like, why? But I find pieces then out of the classical repertoire that I get to pick that have parallels to that, so I can kind of, you know, grab into what they want to play, what they're connecting to, and then build out from there. And I think a lot of that we can still do online. One of the assignments I've seen people give out is go onto Pepper, look at this, listen to this, build a concert. And I think we can continue to do that and continue to make positive experiences, and really, like I said, focus on the ensemble playing when we're together, because we know it's going to be limited.
Great. Thanks, Jamie. Jocelyn Garner, did you have something you were going to add?
Yeah, so some of what Jamie was saying was exactly what I was thinking. And so I would just share that I thought the Zoom meetings were effective for those that were available at that time to feel connected. I used the breakout room to give them a couple minutes to share what was going on with them with 2 other students. And then we come back together and I would explain the assignment for the week and give them time to ask questions. And then I found that most playing feedback was best if they had pre-recorded videos, because they don't necessarily feel comfortable sharing online with the group in real time. And often even just hearing them sometimes talk, you know, if their internet connection was not good, it was difficult to understand. But the pre-recorded videos that they would send me, and then any videos that I made explaining the assignment, I think really seemed to help. And obviously, if we're able to start the year in person, one of the priorities would be making sure every student is connected to the learning platform to help solve some of those login issues that are harder to solve remotely.
Great, thanks, Jocelyn. I would encourage each of you to continue brainstorming and be proactive with coming up with ways to solve the problems that could be coming our way, or the challenges that could be coming our way. And that's something, again, that I've heard on a lot of different calls like this, is that while we want to wait and relax, you know, and just take a breath for a minute and see what changes, make some kind of contingency plans along the way. So if school started tomorrow, what ideas would you have to share with your admin? If school starts in July, you know, think about that same kind of thing. How you're feeling in July, what ideas would you have to share with your admin? Because your administrators are all scared and confused, and they don't know your programs. They don't know how your programs work. Most of them don't anyway. And they need that advice from you guys, for you to come and say, here's 3 potential options that Orchestra could look like at the different levels. What do you think is going to be best? You know, can we use the gym and the auditorium and my room? Can we use whatever? So I would encourage you to be proactive about that. And something else that's been in a lot of discussions that I've been in on is make sure that you are friendly with your counselors. And you probably already are, because you need to make sure that they are able to be flexible with things. But for those of you who are recruiting at the middle school level anyway, to get your kids into Orchestra, that you may not have been able to do the recruiting yet, but you need to have the counselors on your side to be able to switch them later on if you start, you know, if you can't recruit till the fall, for instance. So a couple of different things that I want you to make sure you're keeping in mind. Be proactive and be friendly with your counselors. Anybody else want to jump in on this topic before we have a few minutes to talk about our favorites? Diane?
I'm on the equity team in my building. For those of you that don't know where I teach, I'm in the Park Hill School District. And so most of our kids are in a pretty good situation with home and with resources and supplies and whatnot. But the equity team in our building has been spending a lot of time looking at how distance learning has impacted our kids who are not as well off. And so as you guys make plans for the fall, I would encourage you to look at what did not work for them and try to problem solve that. Because we've lost a lot of kids in our building through distance learning. The gap in our building is bigger than it's ever been. And it's going to be a huge struggle for us coming back in the fall when we're face to face, if we are, or if we continue online. And so thinking about how you're going to help everybody and not just the kids that were super involved with you, I think that's a good thought process to kind of filter your plans through, is does this work for everyone, and some of those kinds of things. So that was just on my mind from a meeting I was in yesterday, and I just wanted to throw that out there.
That's
Thank you,
perfect.
Diane, for saying that.
Absolutely.
Because we have students who, you know, don't even have their own instruments. Like, they borrow schools, but the school wasn't willing to let them go out for an undisclosed amount of time and things like that. And so, yeah, we have kids who are significantly behind. You know, they don't have internet, they don't have a computer, they don't have all that. And even though our school gave hotspots and Chromebooks and stuff like that, still without any sort of parental support at home to ask kids to do their work or to start. I mean, it's really hard as a 6th grader to get yourself motivated to do all of it. And some teachers are really overwhelming with their work. And so what is the last thing on the totem pole? A lot of times it's orchestra, when, you know, parents might actually ask you about math or science or something like that. So it's tricky.
Excellent. Anybody else want to share anything before we share a list of favorites and then call it a day? What do we think? No, ready for the favorites discussion? Ready for to end on a positive note? A less stressful note? Okay, Sheri, you were going to go first with your favorites, so kind of restate some of those maybe, and then Joel, then Allison.
I did, and I put them in the chat there because if you're like me, you're a visual. I'm a visual and kinesthetic person, so I put them in the chat. But I do full orchestra fourth quarter with my middle school, and then I do, of course, debut, which is the youngest full orchestra. So my two favorites of that were Cumberland's Cross by Carl Straumann and Slavonic Legend by one of my favorites, Del Borgo. Then for string orchestra, I said Brian Balmages is one of my favorite composers, so I look at just about anything by him. Echoes of Bartok, arranged by Cummings, is a favorite string orchestra that's classical, that's well done. And then Sleeping Beauty, Tchaikovsky, arranged by Dabczynski, is a wonderful addition too.
Great, thanks. Joel, what about you? What are some of your favorites?
Like I said, I don't do a whole lot of repeating, but I do the standards. I try to do a lot of the standards. They're standards for a reason, you know, the Warlock Capriole and the Simple Symphony, things like that. I think the Mendelssohn Symphonias are highly underrated. I hardly ever hear them performed, and they're really great pieces. Again, I have a lot of my favorite composers, more than favorite pieces. You know, Richard Meyer, of course, is a great go-to. He writes a lot of great stuff. Lauren Bernofsky's been writing some really good stuff lately too. Susan Day. I also like Balmages. So a lot of mine are more favorite composers. Again, a lot of the romantic composers, again, I'll just do searches for their pieces for string orchestra. But one of the great, you know, if you go to the Keisha list, and I'm assuming there's a Missouri equivalent, there's a required literature for state, but there's not on the Missouri side. Well, you don't have to be a Kansas teacher to look at the Keisha list. So it's required literature, and it's separated by grade level. So that's a great resource for checking out some really good pieces as well.
Wonderful. Is that just KS? What is the address for Keisha? Keisha.
KSHSAA.org.
KSHSAA.org. Okay, perfect. Wonderful. Allison, what about your favorites?
Okay, well, I have a really long list, and so I don't know what to say, but I have 3 pieces. Somebody was asking for like some sort of maybe alternative kind of style-y something, I think, on the list that was sent out with questions. And so I wanted to put up 3 for that. We just played Zydeco Two-Step by Doug Spada. It's like a grade 2.5, I think is what it says. And it's very Cajun-y, says our resident Cajun, Melissa Guillory. And we really liked it. And everybody has a really nice part. They all play the melody. And so actually for even beginning basses, they'll get in there and do it as well. So we really like it, that it's appropriate style and genre for Cajun music or Zydeco. And then there's a piece, it's called Battaglia, and it's very old. It's by Von Bieber, but it's arranged by McBrien. And if you've never heard it, it is got a lot of special effects in it for back in the day. There's some cannon fire. And my favorite movement has 17 folk songs. I think it's 7 or 12, something like that. There's a whole bunch of folk songs going on. And it's supposed to be like you're walking through a camp of an army that's all of everyone fighting the war together. And it's all of their folk songs going on at the same time. And so your audience will be stunned and exhausted, and they will have no idea what hit them. But my kids have really enjoyed it once I explain it to them. And then this is one of my favorites for alternative styles, and not all kids like it, and it's kind of funky. It's called Sinapoo, and it's by Cameron Law, and Sinapoo is wolf in Native American. And so I had several Native American students. It starts with a recorder / I turned it into viola solo. And so it's very interesting, and I like it. And they have to imitate wolf sounds in the middle. So I liked it. So those are some. And then I have some favorites, and I will just I can rattle them off. But like Legend is one I like. It's Elliot Del Borgo. Eureka by Keith Sharp is one of my absolute favorites. It gets kids moving. It has some third position. The Explorers by Keith Sharp is amazing. Peer Gynt Suite by Carrie Lane Grissel, arranged by Carrie Lane Grissel, which I don't think you guys mentioned her, but I love almost all of her arrangements for everything. And Catherine Greisinger is a new one that I'm starting to be in love with. So somebody asked for bass parts. I just bought It's arranged by Kenny. It's the Dies Irae. It's the Mozart Dies Irae, and the bass part is ridiculous. So if you have good bass players, that Dies Irae is ridiculous. I love On a Hymn Song of Philip Bliss. Does anybody know this one? It's amazing. It's great. Shenandoah by Krogstad. Paige Munhank played that at MMEA. Also for bass players, Christmas in the Round by Robert W. Smith. And I don't know if anybody's played that. It's every part has their own thing. So the violins have a segment, the violas have a segment, cellos and basses. And so the basses really get a feature. It's a 3-part bass, or yeah, I think it's 3-part bass. There's a 6-part cello thing. And then the violas are silly, and it's a great piece. So those are some of my older ones, like the Armed Forces Salute. Does anybody get into that? Like the Armed Forces Salute by Debchinsky. I can't say anything. And then Sweet Moment is one I wanted to bring up, because somebody asked for pieces that maybe are flexible. Sweet Moment, has anybody played that? It is Alan Lee Silva, and the violin to viola part is the same. So if you have a weaker section, it's for middle school. So if you have a weaker section, it's great to adjust with that piece, or even if you don't have a section. And then I have 3 other shout outs, and then I swear I'll stop. Oh, I have a whole list. You should call me. Sweet Petite Winter Suite is amazing. If anybody has not done Sweet Petite Winter Suite for middle school, you're missing out on your entire life. Get Sweet Petite Winter Suite. It's called Sweet like candy sweet, and then Petite Winter Suite as in musical suite. And each one is after a treat. Time Machine by Richard Meyer, Road to the Rock Hole by George Sweet. I'll write all these down. I swear.
Yeah. Send them out.
They're amazing. Irigami is also another alternative style piece. If you like folding paper and playing on your instrument, knocking on it and stuff, and then you throw paper at the end, it's amazing. So, I mean, I could go on forever. There's so many great pieces.
That is so fantastic. Guys, this has been a real treat. Lots of wonderful ideas, lots of wonderful faces, and just so many great ideas from everybody. Allison, Sheri, Joel, thank you for your time preparing for this and for all the energy you gave to this session. We've been talking about this for a couple weeks now, and we thank you so much for that. Everybody who attended, thank you for your time. If you do want to know any more about Palen Music, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to help you in any way I possibly can. I'm in the Kansas City area, but we have stores all over Missouri and Arkansas and Oklahoma. So please let me know. If you're finishing class this week, good luck to you. If you've already finished, congratulations. And hang in there and I hope that you will put your computer away for a little while after this is all done and go outside and enjoy some nature. But you're doing wonderful things for lots of amazing humans. So hang in there, and we'll take care. All right. Bye, guys.
Barbara Miller, congratulations on your retirement. We'll miss you.
Amen.
Yeah, Barbara!
Bye, guys.
Bye.